Right, after that nail biter of a last game where both players ran their clocks down to the very last few seconds, no surprise that we're ready to get going with our next round game, Emmett. We teased it just previously. Rafi staying on stream, joined now by Kenji Matsumoto, kind of a legendary figure in North American Scrabble.
Truly a legendary figure. I mean, as I said earlier, Kenji's uh, book about Scrabble strategy is I think one of the only ones out there that I'm aware of, at least breaking the game. And as of late, he's been very selective about which events he chooses to show up to. So it is certainly a pleasant surprise, at least for me, to see that he's chosen to play at this one. And thus far, he's been successful. So he'll hope to carry that momentum into this game against Rafi, who is at risk of running away with this event on day 2.
Yeah, I mean, insofar as a 31 game event could be said to, have a runaway, it's certainly a great start for Rafi. It's going to require, if he continues to win a couple more games, it's going to require him to really have a big letdown on days 3 or 4 for him to fall back to earth. But a very, very formidable opponent for him in Kenji. And Kenji's drawn the first blank, which is something he loves to see here. You alluded to it a moment ago, Emmett. Kenji has literally written the book on Scrabble strategy, a book that I have read and consider to be an amazingly powerful resource. You mentioned it, Breaking the Game. Kenji really has driven Scrabble strategy forward in a big way over the last decade. A lot of players, myself included, are very, I take his words and ideas very, very seriously.
Yeah, as do a lot of top experts and non-experts like myself. And Kenji plays the rather pedestrian-looking play of putt to start off, but I think that seems to be a relatively meritorious play. Maybe I'd play something like unapt, maybe for a few more points, but this seems totally fine.
Yeah, I think he's just sort of weighing the extra points that he gets for a play like unapt, as you mentioned, with every tile that he keeps. If he keeps the, unapt, leaving T blank versus this leaving ANT blank, keeping the A and N along with that T does help him. Not only that, he could have played tup in this spot, but he plays put because he has another T. So a lot of reasons to make this play. And of course, we can see that Kenji's drawn very, very well. Rafi is going to play Wino, which is a nice idea. ALB is actually a kind of nice combination. If Rafi can draw an E, he might be looking at a bingo rack on this next turn. So, what's up?
There is a possibility for Kenji on this turn that is incredible. I'm not going to say it right now, but if somebody in the chat can find it.
Is this like a legendary play? So treason looks very reasonable for Kenji. I assume there must be something absolutely bonkers here if you're reacting this way.
It's not better than treason, unfortunately. Scores 10 less, but it's legendary in that it may contribute to Kenji's legacy or maybe to his reputation.
I see what you did there. The idea that Emmett is referring to of with those same letters of treason, we could see Kenji play reputation right here for 66. I feel like we just used that word organically, and now there it is.
I think we did.
Of course, this is not the best play. You're scoring 10 fewer points and giving a gigantic S hook back to Rafi, but the style points for that play would be off the charts. I got to say, I give Kenji a lot of credit for finding his highest scoring play and playing it with that blank extremely fast. That is not that easy to do. So nicely done by him to find his highest scoring move in an extremely short amount of time.
Yeah, and I mean, even just this afternoon on stream, we've seen players miss blank underlaps like this one. So it is very impressive, just from a board vision perspective, to see Kenji come up with this so quickly.
Yeah, totally agree. Let's see. So it's back to Rafi. He's got the J. It looks like he's getting ready to play Toot and Taj. That seems like a pretty natural play. Meanwhile, Kenji waiting with the Q. Not a ton of hope for it, but I think he's probably hoping that T stay open so he can just play cat and move on with his life.
Yeah, I think that seems like it's going to be the best option. It's also an option that shows up the top half of the board pretty nicely, barring some sort of high prob bingo ending in an I, maybe from Rafi, or an opening play that pluralizes put. Because if you can envision the board after both Taj and Cat, it's going to be pretty difficult to extend into the upper half.
Yeah, all very true. So we'll see. I wonder what Rafi is considering, if not Taj. He's probably just assuming, God, there has to be something better than this, but in fact, there really isn't. It's still early in the game, so he doesn't have to worry too much. But I mean, I know that in his shoes, he's concerned about making a board that is really S dependent, right? There is such a nice S hook here and here, but he doesn't have an S of his own. So he's probably a little concerned about that. And as expected, Cat goes down almost as fast as you could hit the clock. If you're Kenji. That's funny because, I mean, Cat looks fast. Yeah, Cat looks like the play here, but I would have at least paused for a second to consider gold under here for 33 points. I agree with Kenji that Cat is still the play for sure. You don't want to keep that Q while you have a reasonable way of getting rid of it. So, yeah, Cat is the play. I guess I'm more impressed that Kenji didn't even need to consider anything else before playing it, but it does make sense to me, Emmett.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, all the other thing about gold is that you're putting out 3 floaters and opening up a triple lane on a board where you're already up by 60 points, and that currently has none of those things open. So, yeah, I think Cat is probably the right play, and it's either impressive or worrying that Kenji took so little time to consider his other options.
So, anyway, back to Rafi, I think he left FLIB, which he cannot have been that thrilled about, but he's drawn another L and a Y. This is going to be a tough turn because the board is just not very good for Rafi's rack. He doesn't have an O. That would make it a lot easier to score points here. He doesn't have a good play ending in I, even though he has an I. So he's going to go ahead and play refly, which undoubles his L's and uses that Y. It makes a good deal of sense to me. This isn't a very inspiring play, but I think it's his most logical play.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he had the option of playing something like Rafi in that spot, opening up another floater. It would put the E out in space, but it would also make a relatively easy scoring spot for Kenji to hit. And after refly, the only real way Kenji's scoring on this board is, I mean, maybe he could have a bingo through the L, but it's going to be something like gold underlapping that J with an O.
Yeah, it makes sense. It doesn't really give anything new back. The S hook is still there in a number of places on the board as it spins to thwart me there. But an S is still, a bingo ending in S is no more playable after gold than it was prior. So, yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense just to balance that rack. And it looks like Kenji is drawing pretty well. What's that last tile going to be? Looks like an A. Nardine, a 7-letter word on his rack. Not sure it actually fits on the board right now, though. I wonder, could Rafi somehow inadvertently give him a spot for it? Not if he plays Biog, which makes the S even more powerful with neither player holding one.
I think, I mean, Biog seems kind of far and away to be Rafi's best option. And yeah, even though there's that massive S setup, I think Biog is just going to be too good here to pass up. Maybe you can think about playing Bio, but the G is just not a tile you want to be holding onto your rack, especially when you're down in the game.
And sorry, I got the scores updated now. So Kenji with that 7-letter word on the rack, but nowhere for it to go. So that's rough. So yeah, what to do here? Kenji has the lead. Kenji has the lead, so he's got to be happy about that. But yeah.
Wow, one of the top options for Kenji is just dropping down his N for 8 points, which on a slightly different board shape might be something he'd think about. But the way that this board is set up, I think he's not likely to bingo with an ADE INR leave unless he draws an S.
So yeah, I think the issue with those fishes of the N is that they kind of rely on either you drawing a bingo through these letters of refly or Rafi opening the board in a way that maybe he's not that likely to do. If I'm Kenji, I'm definitely concerned about the fact that maybe Rafi doesn't have an S on a play like Biog, but he easily could, and fishing something like an N only to get hit with an S bingo that doesn't give you anything back could be rough. It's a good point by Chloe in the chat of maybe just dumping the N. Sometimes you draw an I and you actually hit a bingo with Chi of Denarii. That's pretty cool. Maybe that gives you a little extra hope that you can actually hit stuff. And Kenji is willing to be patient. I'm sure he's considering that nuance here.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point by Chloe. I'm just not sure it's a significant enough portion of the bag to be worth playing off the N. I think, like Sam suggests in chat, I think Refind is just probably the option that we may see Kenji go with, scoring 24, stretching his lead back to 50 points, and closing up that the floater of an L in the middle of the board. But it's certainly very interesting to think about that possibility of playing a bingo ending in I. Denarii is one of those high prob I ending bingos that I was referring to earlier, and Kenji is surprisingly close to it. So we'll see if he decides to opt for that.
Yeah, Refind seems logical. This, fishing your N and leaving such a nice balanced 6-tile leave is so much stronger when you have a little bit better of a board, when you have 8-letter words to play through that are flexible. So I do feel like admiring your good 6-tile leave without a board where it's actually going to play is somewhat counterproductive. And I do expect Kenji to realize that the order of operations should be get an S first, then let's think about grooming our rack towards a bingo. So yeah.
That's another thing that the Refine does well is if he's trying to go for turnover, playing off as many tiles as possible, playing off Refined is giving him 5 bites at the apple. The other thing that's maybe worth thinking about is, well, maybe something like Denarii without the I at the end, hooking onto QI is something that's interesting. But I don't think Kenji will feel comfortable with opening up 4 floaters, high probability floaters. Wow. That is very interesting, Will. That is a big time play.
If you're going to fish an N, you might as well do it in a spot that when you draw bingo, it actually plays. And that is extremely annoying, if not impossible, for Rafi to block if he does not have an A of his own. Very, very nice by Kenji. He's going to draw the N again. So Nardine, which did not play previously, will now fit with the Anna hook. Very, very nice. So yeah, could you play Refind there and try to draw an S? For sure, but this is definitely a very strong option for Kenji because it's so difficult to deal with. But maybe it's not that difficult, I guess, because you could play something into the F sometimes, or just anything into the letters of refly is potentially a pretty effective block of that. But if I'm Rafi, I'm also a little bit worried that I'm going to spend a lot of energy blocking it. But what if Kenji has an S already? And I'm going to spend a lot of energy blocking it only to get hammered with a Biox play anyway. So tough decision. I'm not sure which way I would go if I'm Rafi here. Something like goof, into the F of refly, leaving ILRR is just so weak looking, and he's gonna play gory, which gets the job done.
Yeah,
that's a great compromise by Rafi. Fantastic job by both players. What a cat and mouse game between these two. Not every bingo. Gory doesn't block every bingo, but it blocks some, and it balances Rafi's rack much, much better than any other option. I love it, Emmett.
Right. Yeah, I do love that. It blocks all the highest scoring bingos, and any bingo that Kenji is going to come back with in that spot, the spot that he just opened, is going to open one, if not two, triple word scores for Rafi to be able to have the first crack at.
Wow, but I feel look at that draw. SS for Rafi.
Oh wow. Loris is going to be playable.
Yeah, that's for sure. Great. So Kenji's going to go ahead, and he's probably pretty happy with that exchange. He's going up by 47 on a board that's pretty dead without an S. Unfortunately for Kenji, Rafi just drew two S's. I'm not sure what just happened here.
Whatever happens, I really hope Rafi doesn't play Soilers, because
he won't. Yeah, he won't. I would be shocked.
You think he's just scaring us, Will?
I think they're doing something to make sure that they're doing something to manipulate the clock. Maybe it was a missed clock push or something. So yeah, I guess they're all resolved, but there's no way Rafi's playing Soilers here. That would be a shocking error for somebody that is so rock solid and so consistent. He's going to play Loris's without question. Okay, the only real question is where to play it. So Loris is here, looks clearly inferior because you put an S out in space. That makes it very, very easy to end a word in S, but Loris is here, which I think Rafi is going to play. It does have its own issues, such as at least the Q is already on the board, but an X could be rough after this play. So I definitely agree, Emmett, with this positioning of Loris's, but there is no place to play it that really avoids something possibly negative happening to him in response.
Yeah, but I agree with you. Well, I think this really minimizes the backlash from Kenji. I think especially after only 2 turns after the play of NA, he did play Kenji. That is, did play 4 on the last turn. So his lead isn't as strong as it will be after the 1-tile fish. But there's still a pretty high likelihood that he's relatively close to a bingo after NIDE. So I agree with not giving him an easy spot to play it.
Yeah, this has gone a little bit squirrely for Kenji. I really do like the idea that he had of trying to fish for that bingo. There were many things that he could have drawn that would still have fit after Gory. It just so happened that he drew one of the words that would not fit after Rafi's block. He could easily have drawn all kinds of other stuff that have him bingoing and remaining in the lead. But now he's got 6 consonants and only 1 vowel after his play of Nide down low, which again, I think we totally approved of that play. He's going to play bald. That's the highest number of points that he can get, Emmett.
Yeah, it seems pretty accurate.
Are they having issues with the clock here? I think there's some frustration going on with this clock.
Not really sure. Certainly does look frustrated.
Yeah, there's some unhappiness with the clock here, I think. I'm curious about what exactly maybe he's thinking that when he pushes it, it doesn't work.
I'm not
We'll
sure,
see.
but I'm sure we'll get word from our producer at some point soon.
Yeah, if we get word on the nature of the objection here, I think it's relating to the timer. Yeah, Kenji, it looks like he's pushing it pretty hard to actually be able to signal Rafi's turn. So that's got to be part of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe we'll see like a clock.
Nope. Guys, I think we may have lost Will. So all kinds of technical difficulties going around, both with the game itself and with our stream, but I can assure you we're not missing any live game action. But for now, it's a very close game. After Balds, Kenji's only down 6. It seems like, as the producer says, the players were pressing the clock with multiple fingers, which did not work as well as they wanted it to. Yeah. And they're going to be allowed to go 3 minutes over is apparently the ruling. So if that clock gets to minus 3 minutes, the players will start to lose points. But until that point, the players will not be penalized. All right. We've got Will back in the room, thankfully.
Yeah, sorry about that, folks. Were you explaining, Emmett, what's going on here?
I did. I let I let everybody know what's going on.
Nice. Thank you.
But it's an interesting position for Rafi here.
Yeah, very much so. He has Sarek lined up. Not sure where he's hoping to play that. Yeah, I think Cersei. Not sure if I'm spelling that like the mythical figure or saying it the way I'm supposed to, but that's really the only way that he can get a decent number of points here. Does open up the board a little bit, but the game is so close that I don't think Rafi can afford to turtle up here. I think he has to kind of continue to go for it. So that makes some sense.
Yeah, I agree. And Kenji has drawn a very valuable S now. So there is I think he might want to consider keeping the D on his rack along with that S after this turn so that he can play some sort of ED word next to Loris's on the right. But I'm not sure it's worth sacrificing any significant number of points.
Yeah. It's interesting, though. The S, as you said, Emmett, is so valuable. But what can he even do that keeps the S for next turn? It feels like he has no real way to hold on to his S and still score anything. Like a lot of the good plays that he has are things like Scurf right here. That uses the S. Fused right here. That uses the S. I don't know what Kenji is supposed to do if he wants to hold on to that S. It's a pretty brutal spot. I don't know. Is there some... It's really agonizing because, of course, he wants to keep it and try to draw into a bingo in this spot, but maybe he has to realize that he isn't going to keep pace with Rafi unless he burns it here.
Yeah, I think the realization he's going to have to go through, which he has recognized, and very savvily, as I was saying, keeping the D. So he's going to be able to hit ED bingos next to Loris's. I think he could have played something like Funds for 3 more points, but I like his play of Furls well. He's going to be able to keep pace with Rafi.
Well, it's true. I mean, the only downside to this play is when your opponent has 1 H, let alone both. In fact,
very true.
Rafi has both H's that he can just hammer down in that spot. And even if Kenji hits a bingo, Rafi on his next turn after a 47-point play, like HEH, that's a pretty big play for Rafi to have here. It does admittedly leave him extremely vulnerable to vowel draws that make his next turn really weak. So yeah, pretty interesting. He has Ahi set up on his
So
rack,
interesting.
which would be Galaxy Brain of the Century for him to play Ahi here, blocking a potential X play or ED bingo or ES. I
Right.
guess S would still play here. Let's think about ED. Blocking this and saving your other H for this spot. I don't know if he can actually pull the trigger on that. There's enough other things that play underneath here. Both M's are still available. There's a P still available. There's enough stuff that plays under there that I do think Rafi has to play Heh here. But if he plays Ahi, I'll be very impressed by him even thinking about that. So I would play Heh here for sure. But
He
he's
plays Ahi.
going for Ahi. Wow, that's pretty interesting. He has to have a read. Rafi is a very read-based player. It's one of his strongest skills as a player. In fact, Kenji doesn't really have anything to worry about in that spot. But the nice thing for Rafi is even if you don't get a crack at this spot, you do keep at least one consonant on your rack for next turn, as opposed to playing both of your H's now. I would play Heh there, Emmett. What do you think?
I think I'd have to play Head too. It's 16 more points. The spot is relatively usable by my opponent. And also I would say maybe more often than average, the play of furls holds back some tile that goes in under the U onto the triple. That would increase the value of that play ever so slightly. Now Rafi's kind of in a world of hurt, though. Having drawn 3 vowels, he's got a rack with 1 consonant, and even if he plays something like he on his or actually on his next turn, he's going to be leaving a really abysmal leave. So I don't know. He might be letting Kenji get back into this.
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting here because we know that Kenji has the opportunity to draw a lot of good stuff still in the bag that Rafi does not have. So Kenji can play. I guess you guys are. Some people are suggesting induct. Okay, unwit. This seems like a very nice idea for Kenji to burn through as many tiles as possible, getting rid of the UW combination. And as you guys have pointed out, leaving 2 consonants into this very lopsided pool, expecting a lot of vowels to come. This is a really nice idea by Kenji, Emmett.
Yeah, no, from Kenji's perspective, that pool is scarily vowel heavy. So I like his idea of leaving 2 vowels. It's possible that maybe he would want to play something like Wick through the C and Cersei. But I don't really have any quibbles with Unwit. It's not like he needs to bingo, right? This play puts him down by only 20 points. Now for Rafi, this is a remarkably interesting turn because I think his highest scoring play of just EH, that's 35 points, but the leave of EEEIO is worth something in the range of -15 or -20 points. It's really, really bad.
Yeah, note though that because Rafi has so many vowels on his rack, the actual ratio from his point of view of the unseen tiles is a little more sane. So maybe he can play down here for 35, hoping that maybe he can pluck 2 consonants from the bag. It's not that crazy to imagine. And of course, you sort of foul up this spot, which again, it definitely has. Somebody pointed out that there's stuff like Zook that could go down here, which would be devastating. That is available in the pool with ZOK. That's a worst case scenario, but there's definitely things that can play parallel underneath here as well with the M's and the P. So yeah, this is tough. I think 35 points is enough for me to grab it right now and hope that I get some bailout from the bag. but we'll see what he elects to do. Exchanging, leaving EH or something like that. Oh, God, it just hurts to do
That's
that.
really tough. Yeah, I don't think exchanging is tenable. I think you've got enough plays, even vowel clearing plays, just like playing Erie through the R and Cersei is like not the worst play in the world. You'd like to score more than that, which is why I guess I would be partial to EH or something like Ho next to Unwit, which drops an extra consonant or vowel, and he does play Erie.
Whoa, nice idea.
Yeah,
That's kind of crazy, but it makes sense. There's definitely a logic behind this play. It's basically those are the same letters as he would likely to be exchanging. So why not get some points for them if you can? So Kenji's going to play
right.
Kava immediately to
Very
dump
quickly.
that K and V. No time wasted. Makes total sense. And Kenji's going to be in the lead.
Yeah.
look at
Wow.
Rafi's amazing draw, and
Pothers is a word.
even crazier, he just set up a P hook that he did not have.
Oh my god.
So we're about to see an absolute bomb of a bingo for Rafi, and that's going
Jeez.
to render Kenji almost completely out of this game from just from that exact moment, unless he can pick something beautiful, including that blank.
Yeah, and
Incredible.
I expect him to see one of his two playable bingos pretty quickly. But yeah, this is great. I mean, I assume Rafi has seen this rack any number of times. He's going to know that he's got three bingos in this rack. That is not one of them, but that is. So yeah, this is going to be in 100-point play for Rafi coming right up.
Oh, that's a killer for Kenji too, not drawing that blank. So Rafi is very likely to get it. Wow, absolutely crazy swing in this game. Kenji probably felt decent that he had a chance to draw some of the good stuff from the bag, the S, the blank, the Z. Rafi's
Yeah,
drawn the S, and he could easily pick the other good stuff after this 100-point bingo. Absolutely crazy
it's
ebbs and
nuts.
flows in this game.
Yeah, that is like the best case scenario draw for Rafi. I can't think of a better four tile combination actually that he could have drawn out of the bag. Maybe he wants to draw the blank, but with the blank, his bingos aren't scoring as much. So yeah, this is kind of the dream, especially with that P. Yeah, that's just very, very lucky for him.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, I think Erie had a great logic behind it from Rafi's perspective. I don't think
Yeah,
he was expecting to draw the P and a beautiful 100-point bingo, hooking this after that play. That is luck, but sometimes you make a good play for a good reason and you're rewarded for something in a totally unexpected way. That's
yeah.
kind of how things transpired here for Rafi.
What do you think? What do you think he's thinking about here? Well, why do you think he hasn't made the play yet?
Well, oh my God. He just missed the Peary hook. That has to be,
Holy!
that's got to be it. I cannot imagine he is going to be sick when he realizes that. That is
We've
a
still got a
shocker.
game, Will.
I
We
did not
still have a game.
I did not see that coming. I'm pretty sure Rafi either missed the P hook on Peary, or maybe he had a moment of doubt that it can be spelled in that way. Maybe he thought it was just Peery and not that spelling. But either way, that is, you can't really sugarcoat. That is a huge mistake for Rafi, leaving over 50 points on the board. There was no real threat to him, giving up an out bingo or something like that to Kenji. That's tough. That's tough. Rafi's not going to be happy when he discovers that. But he's
No,
still in good shape here. He's still in very
right.
good shape. He just drew X blank, two tiles that would have helped Kenji. Maybe not so much the X, but certainly the blank.
Yeah, I think with that draw, well, it seems very likely that this isn't going to turn out to be a game-losing mistake for Rafi, but still something that he's going to think about for a while, maybe as he goes into the break after the next game.
Yeah.
So yeah, wow. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still kind of shocked.
Yeah, that's a surprising one. And I mean, I'm, full disclaimer, I consider myself friends with both of these two players. I'm really good friends with Rafi, and I'm not going to be the one that texts him that info after this game. I just, somebody probably will, but it's not going to be me. That's a tough one, a surprising one for sure. But look, not a few weeks ago, I missed the E hook on Viler on the board, and
Oh wow.
I made an 18-point play instead of a 57-point play. So pretty similar
Yeesh.
situation. When I discovered that, it was actually when my opponent, Wellington Jigare, hooked it himself, and all I could do is just start laughing during the game. Because what can you do? These things happen. Of course, I know that eviler is a word. I just didn't think
Right.
of the hook. So
Now, the number of times I've been got by the viney L hook forming vinyl is too many to count at this point. But I mean, let's turn our attention to Kenji's options here, which he's taken quite a while to weigh at this point, at least on the scale of his quickness. I
yeah,
think if I were Kenji, I think I'd be looking to play something here like Amu next to Unwit or Duma or something in that spot. Maybe opening a sevens lane, now down around 40 points. Um, Very interesting.
yeah, it is interesting. He's
He
gonna
will
go
play Duma.
ahead and play Duma. This makes sense. He leaves ATE, and that's a good leave to combine through that D. Potentially hitting a bingo that with the score so close. Yes, Rafi does have the X, but he can't do that much with it. In fact, his best place to play the X is right here, which is essentially a non-starter because you can't play Ox making these beautiful hooks, nor can you play Sox putting an S in the triple lane. Those just aren't going to happen. So if Rafi wants
Right.
to play his X, he's probably going to have to do something like Rex here, which is not going to block very much. It certainly won't block that D at the top of the board. And oof, I don't think Kenji actually hit anything there.
Close, but no cigar. What do you think, Will,
Close.
about Oxter here through the E in Erie?
That looks pretty good to me. That looks nice. So the idea Oxter right here, I think that's great. It doesn't really open very much back. It gets you a little closer to the end of the game. I think that makes sense. Actually, though, you know what's crazy? A
What?
play like a play like Ox is a little bit better than usual because there's only one. Is there only? Hold on, I think the tracking isn't right. Sorry, I need to give Kenji his points. Hopefully, it should update in just a second. There we go. Okay.
Yeah,
So
wow.
now you can see the only hook to Ox is this V, which makes it a
It's
little less
true.
like, yeah, I don't think Rafi's going to play Ox because there's still stuff like naivete that if Kenji has
Right.
that, you really don't want to give that to him when you don't have to. But it's a little less insane than usual, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. I
Still,
think
I'm never playing
I'd be
that.
surprised.
I'm
Yeah,
playing. I'm
it's
playing Oxter every time. I don't want to risk it. It would be crazy to do that. Just to be clear, I much prefer your suggestion.
the other option, which Rafi just set up, is something like Mott or Mose. I'm not sure how that's pronounced. Next to Duma, playing for 33 points, actually more than the X spot, and sewing up that quadrant of the board, blocking any potential bingos that somebody might have through the D, barring any miracle nines. But something to think about. I don't think you have to be too worried about opening up that triple. I don't see anything too harmful, even with the Z in that spot. Maisie, maybe?
The issue with the play like that though is there are four tiles in the bag, and you will definitely
Oh,
lose
that's so true.
to a handful of plays through the sea. Something like Invocate is still very much available for Kenji to have. So that being said, you're going to be in trouble against plays like that anyway. So maybe
Yeah.
if Kenji has that, you're going to be in trouble almost no matter what if you're Rafi. So it could be
Yeah.
okay. That being said, I think I would try to avoid emptying the bag if at all possible. You could probably squeak out, oh, and look at that. He's just going to
going
go
to.
for it right now. He is going to empty the bag. This has the benefit of not allowing Kenji to fish again. Basically, Rafi is saying, if you drew a bingo right now, GG, you got me, but I'm not going to give you a chance to make a really clever play that gives you bingos in 2 spots somewhere, somehow on this board.
Right.
I don't really know exactly where that play would be necessarily. Maybe something like a do. Like if you leave one in the bag, maybe you get hit with a fish like this that somehow works. I don't even think that really works ever. But yeah,
crazy draw from Rafi.
Yeah, look
the
at
last
that.
4 tiles.
So Rafi's up by not quite 50. Kenji doesn't have a bingo, and wow, this is a classic slog. Look at the scores, Emmett.
Yeah, both last game and this game, I'm not sure. Well, I'd actually expect Rafi to hit 400, but he's not going to go over it by too much. Interesting to see what Kenji's going to do here, because it seems possible. I haven't permuted everything, but it seems possible that he may catch Rafi with one of the Z and the X on his rack.
Yeah, that is possible. Or I'm not sure if there's a great. Zax, right? So there is Zax burning the blank here, but if
Kenji has to see that.
He will, but if he predicts that and somehow leaves himself good tiles to either play through the Z or do something to address it, I don't really know what he can do that's that strong to address it. So, like, he could play something like Avo set right here, and then when Rafi plays Zax, Kenji follows up with Zen for a good score, for example.
Right.
That seems pretty good, but Zax will score more than enough points to just make it, just totally out of reach anyway.
Right.
So you guys in the chat,
really
the chat is saying that maybe blocking Invocate instead of the D was actually a slightly more dangerous possibility for Rafi. It might be a couple moves that are being suggested. I think 4X right here, burning the blank, making it impossible to play Invocate. Maybe that wins slightly more often than Mott's, just conceding this D in the upper part of the board. That's beyond my ability, Emmett, to calculate on the fly, but I appreciate the hive mind coming up with that.
Yeah, that is a very impressive idea.
Oh, 4X here, maybe. Is that what they're saying? I'm not really sure. C3.
I think so.
Okay, good enough. Yeah, that's more points, accomplishing the same thing.
Yeah, this is such an interesting position from Kenji's perspective. And we do have to remember that these players are allowed to go 3 minutes under time without being penalized. So,
oh yes,
as opposed to being at just under 4 minutes, Kenji's actually at just under 7 minutes on the clock.
That is a very unique situation. Players having an issue with clock presses and earning themselves an extra couple minutes on the clock. I've never heard of that happening, but it is definitely worth noting that Kenji can go overtime and not be penalized. So he might as well take, 3 minutes, as you said.
Yeah.
He'll be penalized after that.
I think Vane, V-A-N-E, as suggested in the chat, is a very interesting idea, blocking both potential spots to play both the Z and the X on this turn. What do you think about that?
So the idea there is playing Vane right here with Anna, or am I misunderstanding the spot?
Yeah, that's right. That would be right, yeah.
That's kind of cool. It does get in the way a bit. What does Rafi even do in that case? Well, he can, I guess still has Maisie up in the corner for a pretty good score. And then Kenji goes out with something somewhere, coat.
Yeah, I think,
so these plays just don't score very much is the problem, so.
Right. No, Kenji's definitely still lost, but I'm sure he's doing the calculations right now on whether something like blocking the Zax spots will end up positive for him after a play like Maisie.
Suggestion of maybe Dove right here, hoping that Rafi plays Zax, which would give you zone 8 if you're Kenji
Wow.
for quite a lot of points. That's kind of intriguing. Again, I don't think any of these plays actually lead to a victory for you. I'm sure he's using up the rest of his time, which is totally his right to do, to just come up with any way to snatch this game away. Given that Rafi has the Z and the X, which could be difficult to use together in certain scenarios, but the score gap is just too big here.
Yeah, yeah. But the Kenji is well within his right to milk this clock for all it's worth. And that's probably why he spent he spent so many turns playing very quickly earlier in the game, right? It's all part of his time management strategy, which is paying off now that he's got plenty of time to work with in the most complicated portion of the game.
Yeah, for sure. And it is the most complicated. It's so tough, right? The early game positions can be so difficult to figure out because of all the branching pathways that a game can unfold. But actually, the raw calculation and iteration that goes into the pre-end game and end game is similarly, if not more, probably much more time consuming to do properly. So there is really no respite in a Scrabble game. There's a lot of drains on your time, regardless of what part of the game it's in. I do feel like trying to play with good pace so that you end up with a little bit of time to calculate in the pre-end game and end game is definitely best practice, but it's really easier said than done.
Yeah. What is your personal philosophy when it comes to time management? Well, I've heard a lot of people say that they like to keep a third of their time for the end game.
Yeah, I mean, I usually feel like 8 minutes into the pre-end game is what I'm shooting for. Just if it's a really complicated one, that gives me a lot of time to think. I rarely hit that benchmark, especially lately. I feel a little bit rusty. Albany and SPC were really nice to shake off some of that rust, but I also feel like I have a lot of work to do to get back into that good pace that I feel like I have played with at other times in my career. So, but in any case, these two players, Kenji is availing himself of that extra time, as is his right. So you can see the minus normally. That would be a time penalty. But due to a clock issue that occurred earlier in this game, he is not getting docked yet until he goes 3 minutes over.
And the good thing about having a community that is so tight knit, I guess, as ours, is that the dev of the app they're using to track their time himself, Seth Lipkin, is already on this bug fix. So
That's amazing.
That's one of the nice things about having a community like
and
this.
another guy, well, I don't want to commit a HIPAA violation here, but another guy with COVID coming home from SPC, and yet he's going to grind out a fix on this ASAP. That's what you're getting in the Scrabble world. Pretty dedicated peeps all around. So yeah, Kenji's going to have to come up with something. I'm guessing that he probably sees the sequence of like Avocet and then force Rafi to not play Zax, or else he gets responded with Zen. Maybe Rafi plays Maisie instead, which allows Kenji to collect the X points. I'm sure Kenji sees all of that. He is a phenomenally precise endgame player. He is racking his brains for something totally out of left field that might give him a winning chance in this game, which is otherwise pretty stone lost for him. I'm really fascinated to see what he comes up with, and it looks like his body language is he's about to throw in the towel.
He does look disappointed. And he plays Avo. Wow. So he is he's keeping the N in order to hook ANA with Nana at some point, or I guess on the next turn. But this doesn't block both of the Zax spots. And I don't think I guess he's gonna play Zen after, but then he won't be going out. Interesting.
Yeah, it's I'm sure he has a rationale for this. I haven't quite figured it out just yet. If he does, you know what's interesting? That's kind of funny. if Rafi plays Zach, so Rafi cannot play Zax and Anna anymore. If he wants to play Zax here, Kenji can respond with Zen, and Rafi won't have an outplay, I don't think, with the other tiles on this rack. So this has a logic to it. Yeah, we'll see.
I'm not sure the numbers bear out in the end.
What should Rafi actually do here? Not really sure. Either way, let me update Kenji's score he's 30 behind right here. Rafi knows that there is not really much to worry about. As long as he can use one of his Z or X, he should easily stay far enough ahead.
Yeah.
What should he do?
We'll see. I guess, I don't know. Well, maybe this is Kenji trying to bait Rafi into making some sort of game-losing mistake, but I am having a little bit of trouble figuring out what that game-losing mistake would be.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not even sure what Rafi's setting up here. Dozy? I don't know.
Yeah, probably he's thinking about playing Maisie.
There's Maisie now, yeah.
Yeah. So if he does play Maisie at the top of the board, he goes up by a lot, and then Kenji probably just goes out with Teen, as you suggested, hooking Nana.
Yeah, so maybe in fact playing Zax is better because you get to, even though Kenji gets the extra points, you get to play. Well, you could go out with Irie, Eyrie, anywhere, or to the one to the E and Erie. Or you could play for more in the top right. Interesting end game.
Yeah,
it's what Kondo has to say about it.
It's a shame the game was closer because it would be cool to see the entire game riding on this sequence. But yeah,
indeed.
It's unfortunately does not really matter that much. But again, the players are always going to be grinding to the bitter end and make sure that they maximize their spread, as we've already mentioned. And there we go. Rafi does play Maisie, designating the blank, moving up to 394.
Oh, so you won't quite get to 400.
Neither player. Yeah, neither player. And there we go. Teen comes down to finish this game. And there you have it. Final score of 394 to 351. Man, there was a lot to dig our teeth into there, Emmett.
There was. Again, well, I think we've been blessed, maybe not with the closest of games, but with 2 or 3 very interesting positions, very interesting games so far. So, yeah, I think I'm hoping to see what we have for the next one. But for now, I think, unfortunately, we don't have access to an overhead mic for this game.
Yeah, that our producer let us know. Yeah, won't be able to hear the post-mortem, unfortunately. I would be shocked. I would be interested to see Rafi's response to getting word about the Peary situation, which was that was a stunner. Ultimately, it did not cost him, and that is a way that luck can kind of manifest itself, right? That's like sometimes you'll make a mistake and you just don't get punished, or you still win that game. Those are the breaks that you need to get when you're going to have a good result in an event of this magnitude.
And look, at 12-1 now, Rafi, obviously an incredibly skilled player, but for a record that good, it's going to take some luck. And it seems like he got his fair share of it this game, alongside, of course, pretty accurate play. So, Rafi completes the comeback from being down early. And I guess we'll see in the next round. I'm not sure who we're going to have on stream, but we'll be keeping tabs on whether or not he can improve to an incredible 13-1 record.
Yeah, the next game on stream, we are not only trying to give you the best matchups, but also to get a nice variety of players who are doing well that we have not seen. So we got a matchup of players who have yet to be on stream, and that is Eric Goldstein, one of my favorite
yes,
individuals in the Scrabble community, against Saint Vesdapunt. So that's going to be a game with two players that have a really fun style. Should be a blast, but we're going to make sure we reset the board, get our players set, and take a quick break. But we'll be back for our final round of day 2, round 14 from the 2024